Commander Tae-min stared at the sensor screen with growing confusion. Something was out there in the darkness of space, moving toward their patrol area. It looked like a ship, but not like any ship he had ever seen before. "Lieutenant Bo-Ra, take a look at this," he called to his science officer. "What do you make of that contact?" Bo-Ra walked over to the sensor station and frowned at the readings. "It's moving, so it's not space junk. But the design is very strange, Commander. The hull appears to be made of simple metal, not the energy-resistant materials we use, and I'm not detecting any shield generators." Taemin felt a chill run down his spine. Every ship in the galaxy used energy shields. Even the most basic civilian transport had them. A ship without shields would be destroyed by the first micrometeor it encountered. "What about weapons?" he asked. Bo-Ra shook her head. "I can't detect any standard weapon systems. No plasma cannons, no particle beams, no missile tubes. But that doesn't mean they're not there. The hull composition is blocking many of our scans. The Imperial fleet ship Eternal Dominion was one of the most powerful vessels in the galaxy. Its sensors could detect a coin-sized object from 3 light-years away. But this strange ship seemed to absorb their sensor beams like a black hole absorbed light." "Where is it heading?" Taemin asked. Bo-Ra checked the navigation computer. "Direct course for the Kepler 442 system, Commander. That's where the Imperial Military Academy is located." Taemin's blood went cold. The academy was where the Empire trained its future officers. If this unknown ship was heading there, it could only mean trouble. He had to intercept it before it reached the academy. "All hands, battle stations," he announced over the ship's communication system. "Unknown vessel approaching Imperial space. Prepare for possible hostile contact." The bridge crew moved quickly to their positions. Weapons Officer Kyung-soo powered up the main cannons. Navigation Officer Hai-wan plotted an intercept course. Communications Officer Young-min tried to contact the unknown ship. "No response to our hails, Commander," Young-min reported. "They're either not receiving us or choosing to ignore us." As the Eternal Dominion moved closer to the unknown vessel, more details became visible on the sensors. The ship was massive, at least twice the size of their own dreadnought. But its design was completely alien to anything in the Imperial fleet. "Look at those engine exhausts," Bo-Ra said, pointing at her screen. "They appear to be using chemical propulsion. That's impossible. No ship that size could move through space using chemical rockets." "Maybe it's an ancient ship," suggested Young-min. "Something left over from the old days before we had modern technology." But Taemin wasn't convinced. The ship's course was too precise, too deliberate. Someone was definitely controlling it. And if they were using chemical propulsion to move a ship that size at the speeds they were detecting, then their technology was far more advanced than it appeared. "Commander," Bo-Ra said suddenly, her voice tense, "I'm getting some very strange readings from that ship. The metal in its hull. According to my scans, it shouldn't be possible to create alloys like that. The atomic structure is unlike anything in our databases." "What do you mean?" Taemin asked. "The metal appears to be incredibly strong, but also incredibly light. Our computers say it's impossible to forge materials with those properties. Either our sensors are malfunctioning, or that ship is made from technology we don't understand." Taemin felt his worry growing. The Empire had been the dominant power in the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Their technology was the most advanced known to exist. If there was a civilization out there with better technology, it could mean the end of Imperial dominance. "How long until we intercept?" he asked. 30 minutes, Commander," Hai-wan replied. "Keep scanning that ship. I want to know everything about it before we make contact." As the minutes passed, the sensor readings became more and more puzzling. The ship appeared to have no crew quarters that they could detect, no life support systems, no navigation computers, yet it was clearly under intelligent control. "Commander," Young-min said suddenly, "I'm receiving a transmission, very faint, on an old frequency band that we rarely monitor." "Put it through the speakers," Taemin ordered. Static filled the bridge, mixed with what sounded like a voice speaking in an unfamiliar language. The words were harsh and angular, unlike the smooth tones of modern galactic standard. Bo-Ra gasped. "Commander, that language. I need to check the historical databases, but I think I recognize it." She worked quickly at her computer terminal, comparing the transmission to archived linguistic records. After several minutes, her face went pale. "Commander, this is impossible. The computer says this language is ancient human, but that can't be right. Humans have been extinct for over 300 years. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew the stories of the human wars. 3 centuries ago, the humans had been the most feared species in the galaxy. Their ships had been smaller than Imperial vessels, their technology apparently primitive, but they had been utterly ruthless in battle, and their tactics had been unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The war had lasted 20 years and had nearly destroyed galactic civilization. In the end, the Empire had been forced to use orbital bombardment to destroy Earth itself, sterilizing the entire human homeworld. Every human in the galaxy was supposed to be dead. "Run the analysis again," Taemin ordered, his voice tight. Bora checked her results twice. "The language patterns match perfectly, Commander. This is definitely ancient human speech." "But how? Is that possible?" Taemin stared at the unknown ship on his screen. If humans had somehow survived, if they had been rebuilding in secret for 3 centuries, then the galaxy was in terrible danger. The Empire barely remembered how to fight the kind of war that humans waged. "Contact Imperial Command immediately," he ordered. "Priority Alpha transmission. Tell them we may have encountered a human vessel. They need to know about this right away." As Young Min sent the urgent message, Taemin watched the mysterious ship continue its steady approach toward Imperial space. Whatever was on that vessel, whatever the humans had become during their 3 centuries of exile, the galaxy was about to find out. The transmission crackled again through the speakers, and this time Taemin thought he could hear something else in the alien words. Something that sounded almost like amusement. The humans were coming home. Admiral Yujin read the message from Commander Taemin 3 times before she believed it. A human vessel. After 300 years, the humans had returned. She immediately called an emergency meeting of the Imperial High Command. Within an hour, the most important military leaders in the galaxy were gathered in the secure conference room aboard her flagship, the Supreme Authority. "This has to be a mistake," said General Dong Hyun, head of Imperial Ground Forces. "We destroyed Earth. We watched the planet burn. No human could have survived." Admiral Yujin activated the holographic display in the center of the table. The image showed the mysterious ship that Commander Taemin had discovered. Its crude metal hull and primitive design looked nothing like modern Imperial vessels. "The linguistic analysis confirms it," she said. "The transmission is definitely an ancient human language. Our computers matched it perfectly to archived records from the old wars." Captain Wanho, the Empire's chief historian, leaned forward in his chair. He was an old man who had spent his entire career studying the human wars. His face was grave as he examined the ship's image. "Admiral, we must understand what we're dealing with," he said slowly. "The humans were not like other species. They did not think like other species. When we fought them before, they used tactics that no civilized race would consider." "Explain," Admiral Yujin demanded. Wanho activated his own datapad and projected historical images into the air. Ships from the old war appeared, twisted metal hulks that barely looked spaceworthy. "Human ships were always ugly," he said. "They built them for function, not beauty. But they were incredibly hard to destroy. A human ship could lose 80% of its systems and still fight. They had backup systems for their backup systems." He paused and looked around the table at the other officers. But that was not the worst thing about them. The worst thing was their mindset. Humans never surrendered, ever. When other species realized they were losing a battle, they would retreat or negotiate. Humans would fight until their ships were completely destroyed and every crew member was dead. General Dong Hyun shook his head. "That sounds like madness." "It was madness," Wanho agreed. "But it was also terrifyingly effective. No one knew how to fight an enemy that would never give up. Human commanders would sacrifice entire fleets if it meant gaining even a small advantage in the war." Admiral Yujin studied the image of the unknown ship. "This vessel is much larger than the human ships from the old wars. If they've been rebuilding for 3 centuries, then they're probably far more dangerous than before," Wanho finished. The room fell silent as everyone considered this possibility. The human wars had nearly destroyed galactic civilization when humans used primitive technology. If they had spent 300 years advancing their science and military capabilities, they could be unstoppable. What about the ship's construction? Asked Fleet Commander Insu. Our sensors can barely penetrate its hull. That suggests very advanced materials. Wonho nodded grimly. Humans were always excellent engineers. They could build things that shouldn't work according to normal physics. Their weapons were often crude, but they were devastatingly effective. Admiral Yujin made her decision. I'm ordering a full fleet mobilization. Every available ship is to converge on the human vessel's position. We need to be prepared for anything. How many ships are we talking about? Asked General Donghyun. Everything we have in this sector. 12 dreadnoughts, 40 cruisers, 200 fighters. If this is the beginning of a new human war, we need to show them that the Empire is still strong. As the meeting ended and the other officers left to prepare their forces, Captain Wonho remained behind. Admiral, he said quietly, there's something else you should know about the humans. Something that's not in the official records. Yujin looked at him carefully. What? The humans never attacked first during the old wars. They always waited for us to make the first move. Then they would respond with overwhelming force. Some historians believe they were testing us, seeing how we would react to their presence. What are you suggesting? Wonho looked at the image of the human ship, still moving steadily toward Imperial space. I'm suggesting that this might be a test. They're showing us one ship, letting us see it coming. They want to know how we'll respond. But there might be many more ships out there that we can't detect. Admiral Yujin felt a chill run through her body. How many more? Unknown. But Admiral, think about this carefully. If the humans survived the destruction of Earth, they had to go somewhere. They've had 3 centuries to spread across the galaxy. There could be human colonies on thousands of worlds by now. The implications were staggering. If humans had been quietly building a new civilization while the Empire thought they were extinct, they could have a military force far larger than anything the Empire could field. We need more information, Yujin decided. Contact all our deep space monitoring stations. I want them to search for any signs of human activity. And get me our best xenobiologists and military analysts. We need to understand what we're facing. As Captain Wonho left the conference room, Admiral Yujin remained alone with the holographic image of the human ship. It looked so crude, so primitive compared to the sleek lines of Imperial vessels. But she remembered the old saying from the human wars, never judge a human ship by its appearance. 300 years ago, the Empire had made that mistake. They had looked at the ugly human ships and assumed they were dealing with a primitive species. By the time they realized their error, the galaxy was burning. Yujin activated her personal communicator and sent an urgent message to the Imperial capital. The Emperor needed to know about this immediately. If the humans were truly back, the entire galaxy needed to prepare for war. Outside the conference room windows, stars shone peacefully in the darkness of space. But Yujin knew that peace was about to end. The humans had returned, and with them came the promise of chaos and destruction. She just hoped the Empire was ready for what was coming. The human ship continued its steady approach toward Imperial space, completely ignoring the massive fleet that was gathering around it. Admiral Yujin watched from the bridge of her flagship as more and more Imperial vessels arrived to form a defensive wall. 12 dreadnoughts hung in space like metal mountains. 40 cruisers moved in precise formations around them. 200 fighters buzzed between the larger ships like angry insects. It was enough firepower to destroy a small planet. But the human vessel, which their computers had identified as the Soul's Pride, showed no signs of concern. It maintained its course and speed as if the Imperial fleet didn't exist. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Bora from her sensor station, I'm getting new readings from the human ship. The crew complement appears to be very small. Maybe 50 people at most. Yujin frowned. 50 people? That ship is twice the size of our largest dreadnought. How can it operate with such a small crew? Unknown, Admiral. But there's something else. I'm detecting some kind of automation systems throughout the ship. It seems like most of the vessel's functions are controlled by computers, not people. This was disturbing news. Imperial ships required hundreds of crew members to operate effectively. The fact that humans could run a massive vessel with only 50 people suggested their technology had advanced far beyond Imperial capabilities. Any response to our communication attempts? Yujin asked. Communications Officer Young Min shook his head. Nothing, Admiral. They're receiving our signals, but they're not responding. Keep trying. Use all frequency bands. If they're really human, they must understand some form of galactic standard language by now. Suddenly, Youngmin's console lit up with activity. Admiral, incoming transmission from the human vessel. Put it through, Yujin ordered. The main screen flickered, and then a human face appeared. He was a middle-aged man with dark hair and calm eyes. When he spoke, his voice was clear and confident. This is Captain Jin Ho of the research vessel Soul's Pride. I am requesting safe passage through Imperial space to the Kepler 442 system. We are on a diplomatic mission. The bridge fell silent. The human spoke perfect galactic standard with no accent or hesitation. But the words he used sent chills through every Imperial officer. Diplomatic mission. During the old wars, human diplomacy had meant complete surrender or total destruction. There was no middle ground with humans. Admiral Yujin activated her own communication system. This is Admiral Yujin of the Imperial Fleet. You are entering restricted Imperial space without authorization. State your intentions and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Captain Jinho smiled slightly. It was not a friendly smile. Admiral, I appreciate your concern for security. However, we are not subject to Imperial inspection. We are simply passing through. Our business is with the military academy on Kepler 442. What business could you possibly have with our academy? Yujin demanded. We're returning some students to their families, Jinho replied calmly. Young people who got lost in space some time ago. We found them and thought their parents might be worried. This answer made no sense. The academy had not reported any missing students. And how could humans have found Imperial citizens in space? Lieutenant Bo-Ra whispered urgently to Admiral Yujin. Admiral, my scans are showing some very strange things about their ship. The hull material is not just advanced. It's impossible according to our understanding of physics, and I'm detecting energy signatures that don't match any known technology. Yujin felt her worry growing. The human captain seemed completely relaxed, even amused by the situation. Meanwhile, his ship was displaying capabilities that should not exist. Captain Jin Ho, she said carefully. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss this situation. I could send a shuttle to your ship, or you could visit our flagship. Jin Ho's smile grew wider. That's very kind of you, Admiral, but I'm afraid we're on a tight schedule. We have several other stops to make after we finish our business at the academy. Other stops? Yujin asked. Oh yes. We're making contact with quite a few old friends in this region of space. It's been 300 years since we last visited, and we want to catch up on how everyone is doing. The casual way he mentioned 300 years made it clear that this human knew exactly who he was talking to. He knew about the human wars. He knew about the destruction of Earth, and he was completely unafraid. Captain, Yujin said slowly, are there other human ships in this area? Jinho looked thoughtful. Define this area, Admiral. Are you talking about this star system? This sector? This region of the galaxy? The answer changes depending on the scale you're considering. Before Yujin could respond, Lieutenant Bo-Ra gasped at her sensor station. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy spikes from their ship, but they're not powering up weapons. It's something else. On the main screen, Captain Jin Ho appeared to be consulting with someone off camera. After a moment, he looked back at the Imperial fleet. Admiral, my science officer tells me you've been scanning our ship quite extensively. She's curious about your sensor technology. She says it's surprisingly sophisticated for a developing civilization. Developing civilization? Yujin repeated, anger growing in her voice. The Imperial fleet has the most advanced technology in the galaxy. I'm sure it does, Jinho agreed politely. For this galaxy. But the universe is a very large place, Admiral. There are many galaxies out there, and many civilizations far more advanced than either of us. The implications of his words were staggering. If humans had been exploring beyond the galaxy itself, if they had made contact with civilizations from other galaxies, then their technology could be advanced beyond anything the Empire could imagine. Captain, Yujin said, trying to keep her voice steady, what exactly do you want? Right now, just safe passage to the academy. After that, we'll probably want to establish some kind of diplomatic relationship with the Empire. It's been a long time since we last talked, and I think it's time we renewed our friendship. Friendship? Yujin almost laughed. You're talking about friendship after what happened during the wars? Jinho's expression became more serious. Admiral, the wars were a long time ago. Both sides made mistakes. Both sides lost people they cared about. But that's the past. We're more interested in the future. He paused and looked directly at her through the screen. Besides, we've learned a lot during our time away. We've seen what real war looks like when it's fought between truly advanced civilizations. What happened 300 years ago was just a small disagreement between neighbors. We're hoping to avoid any real conflicts this time. The quiet threat in his words was unmistakable. If the humans now considered their old war with the Empire to be just a small disagreement, then they had become something far more dangerous than before. Admiral Yujin looked around her bridge at the frightened faces of her crew. Outside, the most powerful fleet in Imperial history surrounded a single human ship. But somehow she was beginning to suspect that the humans were the ones in control of the situation. Admiral Yujin made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The human ship was too dangerous to allow into Imperial space. She had to test its capabilities and show Captain Jinho that the Empire was not afraid. All ships prepare to fire warning shots, she commanded. Target the space directly in front of the human vessel. I want them to understand that we're serious. Her weapons officer, Commander Kyung-soo, looked uncertain. Admiral, are you sure this is wise? If they really are humans, that's exactly why we need to do this, Yujin replied. If we show weakness now, they'll think they can do whatever they want in Imperial space. The massive guns of the Imperial fleet charged with energy. Warning shots were a standard way to show force without starting a war. The energy beams would pass harmlessly in front of the human ship, demonstrating Imperial firepower without actually attacking. But as the fleet prepared to fire, Captain Jinho's voice came through the communication system again. Admiral, I really wouldn't recommend that course of action. My crew is somewhat nervous about sudden energy discharges. They might misinterpret your intentions. Yujin ignored the warning. Fire, she ordered. 12 dreadnoughts fired simultaneously. Brilliant beams of energy lanced through space, powerful enough to destroy mountains. They were aimed to pass safely in front of the Soul's Pride, a clear demonstration of Imperial strength. But something went wrong. Instead of passing in front of the human ship, the energy beam somehow curved in space and struck the vessel directly. Yujin watched in horror as the combined firepower of her entire fleet hit the Soul's Pride with devastating force. For a moment, the human ship disappeared in a blaze of light and energy. When the glow faded, Yujin expected to see debris and wreckage. Instead, the Soul's Pride was still there, completely undamaged. It hadn't even slowed down. That's impossible, whispered Lieutenant Bo-Ra. Those beams carried enough energy to destroy a moon. How did their ship survive? Captain Jinho appeared on the screen again, still smiling calmly. Thank you for the demonstration, Admiral. My science officer was able to gather some interesting data about Imperial weapons technology. She says it's quite impressive for a civilization at your level of development. Yujin stared at him in shock. Your ship should be destroyed. We hit you with enough firepower to level a city. Oh, you hit us? Jinho looked genuinely surprised. I thought those were warning shots. The energy barely registered on our instruments. But I appreciate the gesture anyway. Chief Engineer Da-hee ran her hands frantically over her control panels, trying to understand what had happened. Admiral, the sensor readings don't make sense. According to my instruments, their hull absorbed all that energy and converted it into something else. The conversion efficiency was perfect. They didn't waste a single joule. What do you mean? Yujin demanded. I mean, they used our attack to charge their own power systems. We didn't damage them, we helped them. The implications were terrifying. If the humans could turn Imperial weapons against them, then the fleet's superior numbers meant nothing. Captain Jinho's expression became more serious. Admiral, since you seem to be testing our capabilities, perhaps I should return the courtesy. My crew would like to conduct a small demonstration of our own technology. What kind of demonstration? Yujin asked, dreading the answer. Nothing dramatic. We're just going to use one of our mining tools to remove some unnecessary equipment from your ships. Think of it as a friendly gesture to help you reduce weight and improve fuel efficiency. On the sensor screens, The Soul's Pride powered up what appeared to be a simple industrial laser, the kind of tool used to cut metal in construction projects. It looked completely harmless compared to the massive weapons of the Imperial fleet. "Mining laser armed and ready," reported a female voice from the human ship, beginning precision removal of excess equipment. The laser fired. It was a thin beam of light barely visible against the darkness of space. But when it struck Admiral Yujin's flagship, it surgically removed the entire primary weapons array without damaging anything else. The massive gun turrets simply vanished, cut away so precisely that the cut surfaces were mirror smooth. Alarms sounded throughout the Imperial fleet as the same thing happened to ship after ship. The mining laser moved from vessel to vessel, removing weapon systems with impossible precision. In less than 30 seconds, the most powerful fleet in Imperial history had been completely disarmed. "How is this possible?" Admiral Yujin whispered. Chief Engineer Da He stared at her instruments in disbelief. "Admiral, the power output from that laser, it's off the charts. My sensors can't even measure it properly, but they're using it like a precision tool, not a weapon." The demonstration was more terrifying than any direct attack could have been. The humans had just proved they could have destroyed the entire Imperial fleet instantly, but chose not to. They had shown mercy. Captain Jinho reappeared on the communication screen. "I hope that was helpful, Admiral. My engineer tells me you should see improved performance from your ships now that they're not carrying all that extra weight." Yujin looked around her bridge at the shocked faces of her crew. Every person there understood what had just happened. The humans weren't just more advanced than the Empire. They were so far beyond Imperial technology that they could treat the galaxy's most powerful fleet like children playing with toys. "What do you want from us?" she asked quietly. "Right now, just safe passage to the Academy, as I mentioned before. After that, we'll probably want to have some conversations with your government about establishing formal relationships." "And if we refuse?" Jinho's smile returned, but it was sadder now. "Admiral, you're thinking about this the wrong way. We're not here to conquer anyone or take anything by force. We're explorers and scientists. We're interested in learning and sharing knowledge." He paused and looked directly at her. "But if you insist on treating us as enemies, well, you've seen what our mining tools can do. I'd rather not show you what our actual weapons are capable of." Chief Engineer Da He whispered urgently to Admiral Yujin. "Admiral, I've been analyzing their ship more carefully. What we thought was primitive construction. It's not primitive at all. Every system on that vessel is more advanced than anything we have. They're just hiding their technology to make it look crude." "Why would they do that?" Yujin asked. "Maybe they don't want to scare us," Da He replied. "Maybe what we're seeing is their attempt to appear non-threatening." Admiral Yujin looked at the human ship on her screen. If this was the humans trying to appear non-threatening, she couldn't imagine what they would be like if they decided to show their true power. "Captain Jinho," she said formally, "the Imperial fleet will provide safe passage to your destination. Is there anything else you require?" "Just one thing," Jinho replied. "Could you contact your government and let them know we're here? We'll want to schedule some meetings once we finish our business at the Academy. It's time for humanity and the Empire to become friends again." As the communication ended, Admiral Yujin realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. The humans were back, and they were no longer the desperate survivors of a destroyed world. They had become something far greater and far more terrifying than anyone had imagined. 3 hours later, Admiral Yujin found herself in the strangest conversation of her military career. The Imperial High Command had ordered her to establish direct communication with the human vessel, and Captain Jinho had agreed to a formal discussion. The holographic conference room aboard the Supreme Authority now displayed the interior of the Soul's Pride. What Yujin saw there challenged everything she thought she knew about ships and technology. The human bridge was spacious and filled with soft, natural light. Plants grew in carefully tended gardens along the walls. The control stations looked more like works of art than military equipment, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to flow like water. Captain Jinho sat in a comfortable chair that appeared to be made from living wood. Around him, his crew worked at stations that responded to thought and gesture, rather than physical controls. "Admiral," Jinho said warmly, "thank you for agreeing to this conversation. I'd like you to meet some of my crew." A young woman with intelligent eyes stepped forward. "This is Dr. Nari, our xenobiologist. She specializes in studying different species and cultures." Nari bowed politely. It's an honor to meet you, Admiral. I've been studying Imperial civilization for several months now. You've accomplished some remarkable things during our absence. You've been studying us? Yujin asked. Of course, Nari replied. We always research a civilization thoroughly before making contact. We've been monitoring your communications, reading your literature, learning your languages. We want to understand who you've become. A tall man with calm eyes joined them. This is Binwu, our quantum engineer. He's responsible for most of our ship's technical systems. Binwu smiled. Admiral, I was very impressed by your fleet's weapon systems. The power output was quite respectable for a developing civilization. With a few modifications, you could probably increase efficiency by 30 or 40%. Yujin felt a mix of pride and irritation. We are not a developing civilization. The Empire has the most advanced technology in the galaxy. In this galaxy, certainly, agreed a third crew member, a woman with diplomatic bearing. I'm Yunsil, and I handle first contact protocols. We understand that the Empire is very advanced by local standards. Local standards? Yujin repeated. Captain Jinho gestured for his crew to take their seats. Admiral, I think it's time we explained what humanity has been doing for the past 300 years. He activated a display that showed a three-dimensional map of space. Yujin recognized the galaxy, with Imperial territory marked in blue. But the map continued far beyond the galaxy's edge, showing vast networks of stars and civilizations that she had never imagined. When Earth was destroyed, Jinho began. The survivors scattered in all directions. Some stayed in this galaxy, hiding in the outer regions and slowly rebuilding, but others went further, much further. The display zoomed out, showing dozens of galaxies connected by lines of light. We've spent 3 centuries exploring the universe, Admiral. We've made contact with civilizations that span multiple galaxies. We've learned from species that are millions of years old. We've seen wonders that would take lifetimes to describe. Dr. Nari leaned forward. We've also seen wars, Admiral. Real wars, fought between civilizations that can move stars and reshape planets. Compared to those conflicts, what happened between humanity and the Empire 300 years ago was just a small disagreement between neighbors. Yujin stared at the display, trying to comprehend the scale of what they were showing her. How many human ships are out there? In this region of space? Jinho consulted with Binwu. That may be 40,000, but they're mostly exploration and research vessels like ours. We're not a military force, Admiral. We're explorers and scientists. 40,000 ships, Yujin whispered. Even if they were all as advanced as the Soul's Pride, that was a fleet larger than anything the Empire could field. Why are you telling us this? She asked. Yunsil spoke up. Because we want to establish peaceful relations with the Empire. Humanity has learned a great deal during our time away, and we'd like to share some of that knowledge. But we also want to learn from you. Learn from us? Yujin laughed bitterly. What could we possibly teach you that you don't already know? Quite a lot, actually, Jinho said seriously. The Empire has developed some unique approaches to government and social organization. Your methods of maintaining peace between different species are particularly interesting. We've encountered very few civilizations that have managed to create a stable multi-species democracy. Dr. Nari nodded enthusiastically. Your cultural integration techniques are remarkable. In most galaxies, different species either fight constantly or completely segregate from each other. The Empire has found a middle path that we'd very much like to study. Yujin felt confused. These humans possessed technology that could destroy the Empire without effort, yet they seemed genuinely interested in learning from Imperial civilization. What exactly are you proposing? She asked. Captain Jinho smiled. A partnership, Admiral. We'll share some of our scientific knowledge with the Empire. In return, we'd like to establish research stations in Imperial space and study your society. We're particularly interested in your educational systems and your methods of conflict resolution. And if we refuse? Jinho's expression became puzzled. Why would you refuse? This is an opportunity for both our civilizations to benefit. We're not asking for territory or resources. We just want to learn from each other. Binwu added. Admiral, the knowledge we could share would advance Imperial technology by thousands of years. We could help you develop faster-than-light communication, perfect energy conversion, even techniques for extending life indefinitely. The offers were incredibly tempting, but Yujin remained cautious. What guarantees do we have that you won't try to conquer us once you're established in Imperial space? Yunsil looked genuinely sad. Admiral, I understand your concerns. The humans you knew 300 years ago were desperate survivors fighting for their existence. We're not those people anymore. We've seen what the universe has to offer, and conquest is a waste of time and energy. Captain Jin Ho activated another display, showing a peaceful world covered in cities and gardens. This is New Sol, one of our colony worlds. We have thousands of planets like this throughout the universe. We don't need to take territory from anyone. The image changed to show humans working alongside alien species that Yujin didn't recognize. We've learned to coexist with dozens of different civilizations. War is simply too destructive to be worthwhile. Dr. Nari leaned forward. Admiral, we've seen what happens when advanced civilizations fight each other. Entire star systems can be destroyed in minutes. Billions of lives lost for no real gain. Humanity learned long ago that cooperation is far more profitable than conflict. Yujin considered their offer carefully. The Empire desperately needed the technology that humans could provide. But she also remembered the stories from the old wars, when humans had been utterly ruthless in battle. How do we know you've really changed? She asked. Captain Jinho was quiet for a moment. Then he activated a final display, showing the Earth as it had been before the war. Green and blue and beautiful, home to billions of people. Because we remember what we lost, Admiral. We remember what war cost us. Every human alive today is descended from the survivors of Earth's destruction. We carry that memory with us always. His voice became soft but firm. We came back not for revenge but for closure. We want to show the galaxy that the cycle of violence can be broken, that former enemies can become allies. Admiral Yujin looked around the holographic conference room at the faces of the human crew. They seemed sincere, but she had to be certain. If we agree to this partnership, she said slowly, what happens if things go wrong? What if our civilizations can't coexist peacefully? Yunsil answered immediately. Then we leave. We have an entire universe to explore, Admiral. We don't need this galaxy. But we hope we won't have to make that choice. Yujin made her decision. I'll recommend to the Imperial Council that we accept your proposal. But it will take time to convince them. Many people still remember the old wars. Captain Jinho nodded. We understand. Change is always difficult, but we have time, Admiral. We've waited 300 years to come home. We can wait a little longer to build something better. As the communication ended, Admiral Yujin realized that the galaxy stood at a crossroads. The humans had returned not as conquerors, but as teachers and partners. Whether the Empire would be wise enough to accept their offer remained to be seen, but one thing was certain. The age of the Empire ruling the galaxy alone was over. A new chapter in galactic history was about to begin,